So if any of you have been following my channel, then you would know that I recently completed 5 weeks of teaching myself data science in a series that I dubbed DIY Data Science. It was my first time really putting together a self-taught curriculum as opposed to just ad hoc learning, and I definitely learned a lot of lessons from how to learn. So if you're interested in teaching yourself really anything, not just programming, but in this situation programming specifically, then stick around for the video. And before you do that, please be sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe. It all helps out the channel a lot. Comment down below, what have you taught yourself? How did you teach it to yourself? What tips and tricks do you have? I really would love to get a conversation flowing about learning. I love learning. I love talking about learning. I love all things learning except for the education system, but that's a whole other video. So the first lesson that I learned is the importance of simplicity in a curriculum, and I kind of learned this the hard way. When I first set out to learn data science, I had multiple courses that I wanted to learn. I wanted to take one from MIT, I wanted to do a whole specialization from the University of Michigan. I knew that I wanted to do the intro to machine learning from Google, and I wanted to do Kaggle, and I wanted to do Named to Tetris, which was a whole other project that was computer science based. It had nothing to do with data science. And it was a decent curriculum. There was a lot of stuff in there, but it was probably too much. What this resulted in was burnout towards the end of the series, where I had learned the same things from multiple sources so many times, and I hadn't done enough actual coding, nor had I moved on to more advanced concepts. This is kind of why I ended the series a little bit earlier than I had anticipated. 5 weeks is still a long time, and in my opinion plenty for getting my feet wet with data science. By no means am I a data science professional. I could probably barely handle a data science internship right now, but perhaps had I not had so much overlap in my curriculum, then I would be more confident in my skills, then I would have learned more. So what would I do going back to try and fix this? And there are a few main things. First of all, I would look at what's actually inside the courses I was taking and not just the titles. I did kind of judge each course by its cover here. And I would also try and put my faith into one course or creator or specialization more so than going to a bunch of different ones and putting together some ad hoc solution. I do think that in the early stages of programming, which I'm currently in, complete open honesty here, this is a very in the dirt perspective that I'm giving. Maybe in 10 years when I'm an experienced software engineer, I'll look back and be like, oh, how stupid. But to kind of relate to fellow college students and self-taught programmers early on in their journey, this is what this YouTube channel is, this is what this video is, and I just want to be upfront about that. This isn't so much as advice as it is a conversation starter, as it is something to think about or consider. Anyways, I think that there are plenty of awesome people who do have that 10 years in the future experience who have looked back and put together curriculums that you don't necessarily need to question. You don't need to combine them with other things. For me, that would have been the University of Michigan's specialization in applied data science. By the time I had finished, or the part that I finished so far, I still have a couple courses left, but they are more unique, nuanced topics, which I'm really looking forward to because I kind of was starving for them in my actual DIY data science series. But by the time I finished the beginning part of the specialization, I had already learned most of the things that I would then go on to learn again in Google's Intro to Machine Learning, in Kaggle, and I really should have just gotten started with projects on the side and done the University of Michigan specialization. But you don't have to go to Coursera and do the exact course that I'm talking about here. There are plenty of other pathways to go down. Google's Intro to Machine Learning course was fantastic, and they do have further courses that will teach you more and more. YouTubers like Ken G, Andrew Mo, The Data Professor have all laid out curriculums or journeys or pathways, whatever you want to call them, that honestly going to any of their YouTube channels, YouTube videos, and picking one and saying, I'm going to commit to this, I'm going to trust this person to handle my education, it's probably a good idea. Now, don't put blind faith into anyone, even people I'm recommending. Do your research on the things that they're recommending and see if you agree with them or not. Maybe you change some small things. Maybe you've already done a Python intro course. You're not going to take their intro course over again. Fair enough. Maybe you found some resource that you want to incorporate. Fair enough. I'm just saying it would have been better to have been more focused. For me, that is. And the next point here that I kind of hinted at before is getting started with projects earlier. I waited towards the end of my data science journey to start on projects because, to be quite frank, I was scared. I thought I didn't know enough. I thought I would be totally confused. I thought it would go over my head. And by the time I actually dove deep into Kaggle and did my Titanic project and did my digit recognizer project and completely failed at a personal project, I realized that I did know enough. I had known enough for a little bit. And had I gotten started earlier, I probably could have avoided burnout. Now, burnout is super common, and when you throw yourself at something for 5 weeks, you're probably going to start to feel a little bit burnt out. So I'm taking a couple days off and then going back to learning. But I do think that the projects, they really trigger that creative side of you that isn't as inclined to burn out as just the technical learning side. In fact, by the time I started doing projects, most of the beginner ones were probably underneath what I was capable of doing, and all of the advanced ones just took it to a whole other level, and I have no idea what's going on when I read their source code, but I still have some courses left in the University of Michigan, so DIY data science isn't technically completely over. I'm just not going to be going 110% at it. Trend Black, the YouTuber, did mention one of his videos, which was a comment that that really helped put some things into perspective. He mentioned how there is that gap between beginner projects that you're like, this is super easy, you can do them in a day, you can learn how to do them from scratch in a day, and then you get the super advanced projects, and it's like, nope, I can't do that. I have no idea what's going on up there.
What will you suggest to the beginners who are stuck in the tutorial hell?
All right, so tutorial hell. This is a common one. I think this one was upvoted quite a bit. And yeah, so this is a tough one.
And then the final main lesson that I really took away was, and I'm going to put this in more general wording and then kind of apply it to data science specifically, is some prerequisites are there for a reason. In data science, what I mean by that is, yeah, when they say that you got to learn statistics and linear algebra, they're not kidding. Now, linear algebra, not as much. You can definitely get a fair bit into machine learning before you really need to know linear algebra, but I do think that it would help a ton in learning machine learning if you had the linear algebra background. And when it comes to statistics, well, that's kind of the backbone of all of this stuff, and to be quite frank, I knew I was being stupid when I hadn't taken a statistics course and I chose to dive into data science. But I kind of knew that going into it, and I know it even more so now, and that's why I'm postponing my machine learning project until I take a statistics course next semester. And to bring it home, I'm going to be putting this in the perspective of my next curriculum plan thing that I put together. And this time, I actually took my own advice. So the next thing that I want to learn is web development. I guess you could call it full stack, but really I just want to be pretty familiar with front end, pretty familiar with back end, and then specialize, dive into whatever I want. Another thing I want to get good at is data structures and algorithms because you need it for programming interviews. So for the curriculum, I'm putting a fair bit of faith into Free Code Camp. It's been recommended by a fair amount of YouTubers. Ben Awad's YouTube video was pretty helpful. It's a year old now, so it might be a little outdated. Hopefully he remakes it soon. But yeah, putting my faith into Free Code Camp, learning, taking all of their courses, and then for data structures and algorithms, taking MIT's algorithms class, which was recommended by Trend Black. This is kind of taking the advice of simplify, 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 and it's 2 services, both of which are very clear, very straight to the point, and should I choose to branch off of one of them at some point down the line, that's going to be with the knowledge that I had gained so far. Instead of trying to plan super far ahead, it's almost like you're trying to know what you're going to have to know, but you don't know what you... Yeah, I'm gonna just stop talking there. I think you understand what I mean with you can't plan too far ahead because then you just have no idea what you're talking about because you haven't even learned the intro stuff yet. And one other course I do have thrown in there, but I really just want to listen to a couple lectures from it, is Harvard's CS50 class because I took MIT's Intro to Computer Science. You can see a review for that here. But I want to listen to some of Harvard's lectures so that I can kind of round out my computer science foundation. Okay, so I want to come in here at the end and give you my definitive what would I do if I had to do it all over again. If I'm starting from literally zero, I would start with University of Michigan's Python for Everybody course to teach myself basic Python, and then I would move into University of Michigan's Applied Data Science specialization. Around the time that I move into the specialization after the Python for Everybody course, I would also start learning some SQL. I would do that probably with the Stanford course that I took was pretty good. Kaggle has micro courses on SQL. You can also kind of learn the basics of SQL through a YouTube video too, and then just start working on problems for SQL. That's probably the best way. So I would watch a YouTube video or the lectures from Stanford and then start practicing LeetCode. And that would probably be about it. And then once I get past the data visualization course in a University of Michigan's applied data science course, I would immediately start working on projects. So I would do Kaggle Titanic, I would do Kaggle Digit Recognizer, and I would Google my way through those if I had to, and start working on projects, start building that stuff up. And yeah, so that I would cut the MIT course that I already cut. I would cut Nantu Tetris, but that was kind of a separate thing in the whole time. That being said, I wouldn't have a very separate thing going on. I think that was a mistake. And I would also cut Google's Introduction to Machine Learning course because there really is a lot of overlap between University of Michigan and Google there. So there's so much diminishing returns. And yeah, that is my definitive. If I were to teach myself data science all over again, what would it be? And yeah, so those are some of the lessons learned from DIY data science. Again, if you have any tips, tricks, methods that you use for learning, teaching yourself stuff, then leave a comment down below. If you are interested in tracking my journey in the future with web development, with data science, with anything computer science, then subscribe and be sure to smash the like button. That's going to be it for this video, guys. Peace.